BeatMaker is a squad. What's good? It's your boy Cheese Producer. Now, you know, I know for quite some time I've been like a huge advocate of iOS production. And I know somebody's got to be out there thinking, well, Cheese, you rocking with the MPC quite a bit now. Like, what's good? That iOS don't get love no more? Today, we're going to bring iOS and the MPC together. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Let's get into this. Alright, so before we get started, let me get through with the YouTube pleasantries. Please do me the favor, like, comment, subscribe, share, you know, and I'm not saying that to be phony. I mean, like, if you really like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you felt like I missed something in the video, instead of hitting the thumbs down, leave a comment below and like kind of like engage in some conversation with me. And so like I can find out what you think I did wrong, or maybe we can just kind of meet in the middle, or we can agree to disagree. But instead of hitting that thumbs down button, once you do that for me, also share the video if you feel like it's beneficial to you, or you feel like you know someone who's looking for this information. Definitely share the video, and definitely hit the subscribe button if you're looking for more content like that. Now that we got that out of the way, let's move into today's topic. Today's topic is how we're going to use the Akai MPC-1, and this applies to the MPC Live as well, and the Live 2, and an iPad or iPhone. Now, I have a couple of things that I want to show you. First thing I want to show you, is, well, it's going to be this thing. This is an M Audio, I believe it's the Midi Uno. What this allows me to do is basically allows me to plug this USB into my iOS device, and it gives it a physical MIDI input and output, which is really dope when you think about it. Okay, and I use this. I actually don't use it as much anymore as I used to, but I'll use that. Like I have some other hardware devices, some other MIDI hardware devices, so I'll use that with it if I want to use the iPad with it, or even my computer. Now, something that I got not too long ago was this thing here. This is the CME WIDI Master, and what this is gives any MIDI device that doesn't have Bluetooth, makes it Bluetooth capable. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see many times I'll use my Akai S20 sampler, and I'll actually use this. I'll plug this into the S20 and I'll control it from BeatMaker 3. And if you'd like to see me go over a video of how that happens, please let me know in the comments below. But this thing right here, I absolutely love. And this kind of makes it makes up for the lack of Bluetooth with the MPC-1. The MPC Live, the Live 1 and Live 2, they both have Bluetooth on them, so I wouldn't need this if I had one. But this one doesn't, and this for about 50 or 60 bucks kind of adds that one feature, and I'm not mad at it. Probably asking, well, Cheese, you know, there's synths on the MPC-1. You can do multi-sampling on the MPC-1. Why would you want to use your iOS device? Well, I'll answer you simply because I got presets and stuff on my iOS device that I really like. You know, I have synths on my iOS device that I really like, and so for me to try and like resample those and do it, it's time that I don't want to use, basically. And also, when I use the MPC along with my iPad or even my iPhone, it takes me back to a time when I had probably I was probably about 3, maybe 4 years into producing, when I finally got my first MPC and I finally got my Korg Triton. And basically what you would do is you would have your drum machine and you have your sound module. The drum machine would have your drum samples and any other sounds that you may want to have, and your sound module would be the one that you play, like your piano sounds, synthesizer sounds, etc., etc. Now, the great thing about sound modules is that they had this one feature where they could be multi-timbral. Multi-timbral basically means that you can take one MIDI cable from the drum machine, plug it into your MIDI device, and you could control multiple instruments in one device. So with MIDI, you have 16 channels. So if you had a multi-timbral device, depending upon the polyphony, you could play up to 16 different instruments at once. So for example, with my Korg Triton, I used to basically have all the drums in the MPC and have the Triton doing all of the melodic stuff. And not more times than not, I did not. That was confusing. I would say it was very rare that I would actually ever use up all 16 MIDI channels, but you just had, it gave you that flexibility. Okay, so now I'm doing this same type of thing with the MPC and with my iPhone. Okay, so today what I want to do is I'm going to take you through how to set that up. So if you have synths on your iPhone that you really like and you got presets on it, or even your iPad or your iPod Touch, whatever the case may be, so you can use those synths with your MPC One or your MPC Live, whatever it is that you might have, and you don't have to worry about like, oh, I can't use these together. Or if you want to do something, which I think is crazy, like using BeatMaker 3 and the MPC together, you can do that. So today we're gonna go over how to set it up with a synth that's not multi-timbral. So basically something like Waldorf Nave or even Korg ODYSSEi, because it's something. Those are synths that only allow you to play one preset at a time, or if you want to use a multi-timbral sound module. Specifically, the one I'm thinking of right now is Korg Gadget, because Korg Gadget you can load up a ton of instruments at once. So I'm going to show you how to set it up for Korg ODYSSEi, Waldorf Nave, Korg Gadget, and then we're going to tackle the elephant in the room, which is BeatMaker 3. So let's get started. All right. So first thing we need to do is set up the MPC so it can actually send MIDI to whatever external device that you want to use. So I'm gonna use the CME WIDI Bluetooth. Understand this is a Bluetooth. This is like a Bluetooth adapter, but the way MIDI works, it works the same way with either or. Okay, so when you have this, you'll notice that it has an arrow pointing out. So that means this one should go into the MIDI out, and which means this shorter one goes into the MIDI in. So let's just connect that right now. Now, when you're connecting these physical MIDI inputs and outputs, it's very important that you do not try and force them in, because they have small, like those little teeth in there, those five pins in there. And what you don't want to do is force it in there, because if you force it in there, what ends up happening is you end up breaking it, and that's not cool, you know? So this is connected. Once it's connected, usually it lights up blue. You probably can't see that on the camera right now, but it's connected. All right, so now let's say on this particular track, let's say on this particular beat sequence that we want to make, on track 1, we want to use a MIDI device. Okay, so we're going to switch it from drum machine to MIDI device. Okay, so now you see a MIDI program is set up as MIDI 001. You can actually change the name of the track and the MIDI program just simply by using the pencil tool at the MIDI program or the pencil tool at the track name. Okay, so now you'll see, as I told you before, every MIDI device has 16 channels. So if you click here, you'll see that you're given the option to choose from channels 1 through 16. Something I normally like to do is to just kind of keep, if it's track 1, that's going to be MIDI channel 1. If it's track 2, MIDI channel 2, because it just makes things a lot less confusing. All right, now the next part might be something that you may overlook if you're not careful, and that is you have to choose the MIDI port. Okay, so the MPC One can send MIDI via USB. It can also send MIDI via the 5-pin DIN. So what we would do here is we'll go to MIDI port and we'll just go to MPC, but you can see it goes remote. I'm not sure what the remote one is, but we definitely want it to be on MPC. All right, so that's for track 1. So let's actually set up 4 tracks of MIDI. Okay, so track 1 we got set up. Track 2, notice when we get to track 2 that it's still set as a MIDI channel, so we're gonna let that be, and we're gonna change this to channel 2, MIDI port, also gonna be MPC, track 3, we're gonna change the MIDI channel to track 3, MIDI port, MPC, track 4, MIDI channel, we're gonna change to track 4, and the port one is gonna be MPC. And at this point, we are done. Okay, so I would normally go back to track 1 so I can start recording on track 1, and then I can overdub on track 2, 3, and 4 afterwards. Now, let's set up the iPad and Korg Gadget and a couple other synths so we can use them with the MPC. All right, now we're just opening Korg Gadget. First thing you should notice is that up in the right hand corner that the CME WIDI has been found. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the settings, and we're going to go into the Bluetooth MIDI settings, and you'll see whatever other Bluetooth devices you may have used in the past. If they're grayed out, it just means that they aren't available currently. Notice how the WIDI Master is pretty much kind of highlighted, which lets you know that it is currently available. So all you have to do is simply tap it. It will begin to connect. Give it a second. Now you can see it's connected. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the main settings button. And since I want to use Korg Gadget as a multi-timbral MIDI device, I'm going to change the MIDI input from easy to advanced. Okay. Now, at this point, you see I have four different Korg gadgets that are in this track. You also notice that there is nothing in each track. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up each instrument individually and set up its MIDI routing. Normally on this channel here, what you would see where it says all, it would say MIDI, and what that allows you to do is that allows you to connect the MIDI device and play that specific track once it's connected. With the advanced MIDI settings, you can actually go into each track, set up its MIDI channel and where it's receiving MIDI from, and that way you don't have to go in and choose a MIDI device each time that you want to play it. So what we're going to do is we're going to press all, and you'll see it says all instruments, all channels. We don't want that. So not all ends, excuse me, all channels. So the ends, instead of that, we're going to select WIDI Master Bluetooth. Then we're going to go back, and for this one, let's just simply select channel 1. So now anything that I do on the MPC that is coming from channel 1 will be assigned to the Chiang Mai. Okay, now let's move over to the next track, excuse me, and we're going to do the same thing here, all ends. We're going to go to WIDI Master Bluetooth, I'm going to go back, all channels, and we're going to change this one to channel 2. Now we'll do the same thing for track 3, all ends, change that to WIDI Master Bluetooth, all channels, and I'm going to change this to channel 3. I'm going to go on to the 4th track, change from all ends to WIDI Master Bluetooth, all channels, and change this to channel 4. And at this point, pretty much the way it's set up, we now have a 4-track multi-timbral device that we can use as a MIDI sound module for the MPC. And the great thing about this is, let's say you have Korg Gadget, but you don't have an iPad. Say you have it on an iPhone. Well, guess what? It works with the iPhone as well. Okay. Now let's take a look in maybe another app to see how we can do this with something that's just maybe just an individual solo instrument. Okay, so now we are in Waldorf Nave. Waldorf Nave is not a multi-timbral synthesizer. So basically what that means is that it will only allow you to play one instrument at a time. This is something I use very often if I have a particular bass sound, or maybe even a lead, or whatever the case may be, that I would like to use in a beat. I will use something like Waldorf Nave or any other non-multi-timbral synthesizer in order to achieve that. So now that we're in Nave, let's simply set this up, and you'll see that it's not that much different from setting up Korg Gadget. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to tape and systems, okay, and then where it says MIDI, we're gonna go to the DEV. All right, so you'll see right here it says Bluetooth LE. I'm gonna press Bluetooth LE. You see the WIDI Master is already connected because we connected it previously in another app. So it just stays connected until you disconnect it. Then you'll see below that it says channel 1. So once again, you choose a channel that you would like to use. If you have no other MIDI devices that you would like to use, you can choose to use the Omni channel. I usually stay away from the Omni channel just in case I decide to add more MIDI devices. So for example, I might use my iPad for one sound, then I may use my phone for another sound. If I do something like that and I have one on Omni, if I have this one on Omni and let's say I have the other device on channel 2 and I'm sending MIDI from channel 1 and channel 2, this one being that it's on Omni will receive the MIDI information from both channel 1 and channel 2. Omni means it will receive MIDI information on any channel that is sent from the device that it's set up to receive MIDI from. So this is set up to receive MIDI from the CME WIDI. If I have it on Omni, it will receive MIDI on any channel from 1 through 16. I don't want that. So because I don't want that, I will leave this one at channel 1 for now, and then pretty much hit OK again, and we're all set up. All right, so now we're going to take a look at another non-multi-timbral synth so you can see it being set up again and see that it's really not that difficult. All right, so now we are in Korg ODYSSEi. This happens to be one of my favorite synths on iOS, and luckily with the 2.10 update, this is a synth that is actually included now with the ODYSSEi MPC series. Now I have some presets that are in here. I don't believe that the two of them are compatible. Like, I don't think I can take the presets from this device and put them onto the MPC. So many times the presets that I have, I will just use them from my iPad as opposed to trying to reprogram them into the ODYSSEi that's on the MPC. But let's set this up. So what we want to do is we want to go to the settings wheel, okay? And first thing we want to do is we want to check that Bluetooth MIDI settings. As you can see, WIDI Master is still connected. So let's go back to the settings again, and we want to select our MIDI channel. As you can see here, you'll have the same device. You have the same choices to choose from Omni or 1 through 16 because there are only 16 channels of MIDI. Okay, so I just leave this. Usually leave all my synths that are not multi-timbral on channel 1 because it just makes it nice and easy to connect and get everything done. So at this point, the ODYSSEi is set up and ready to use with the MPC. All right, let's keep going because I know what the elephant in the room is, and we are going to see if we can get that to work. All right, so now this is the elephant in the room. This is the one that I've heard tons of people talking about on Instagram, the combo they would like to use, BeatMaker 3 and the ODYSSEi MPC together. Okay, so let's take a look at some settings and see how we can get this accomplished. First thing we want to do, turn on the Bluetooth. Okay, Bluetooth is on and connected because it has been connected previously. Second thing we want to do is we want to look at the MIDI inputs and outputs. You can see that WIDI Master is selected as a MIDI input. Right now it's not a MIDI input, but we're going to turn that back on. The sync, since BeatMaker 3 is set up to receive sync, it means that if I press play on something that will send a synchronization message, that it will start when it's told to start, it will stop when it's told to stop. MIDI clock will basically tell BeatMaker 3, hey, I'm at bar 1, beat 2. Bar 2, beat 3, wherever it might be, it'll tell it where it's at and basically make sure that BeatMaker 3 is there as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you something real quick. I'm going to change the tempo on BeatMaker 3. Let's change it to 90 beats per minute, and you'll see why I'm doing that in just a second. Now let's go into the MPC and let's take a look at these MIDI preferences. So I'm going to go to the preferences page and press the MIDI sync page so we can get in there. So we're going to scroll down, and right now we want the MPC to control we want the MPC to control BeatMaker 3. So instead of sync receive, we want sync send to be on the MPC 1. So you can see sync send is set up and it's sending MIDI time clock. We don't want MIDI time code because as far as I know, BeatMaker 3 cannot receive MIDI time code. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the main page, and we'll go back to the main page here, and I'll have the metronome turned on so you can see if they actually synchronize or not. Okay, so I'm pressing play on the MPC, and as you can see, the MPC is going at 80 beats per minute, whereas BeatMaker 3 is going at 90 beats per minute. That is not what we want. Obviously, you want them to be synchronized with tempo and with their placement. So with this, I would assume you just simply you'll change the tempo of BeatMaker 3 so it matches up to the tempo of the MPC. So let's try this once again. So as you can see now, they're perfectly in sync. I know some people worry about latency, but if you look at the two, you can see they're perfectly in time with one another. All right, so now let's try it the other way around. If we want the MPC to follow the iPad, all right, so let's set that up. So I'm gonna turn the sync in off and turn the sync out on. And we're gonna do the reverse in the MPC. So we're gonna turn sync receive on and turn that to MIDI clock, and send, we're gonna turn that off. Okay, and let's go back to the main page, and I'm gonna change the tempo on BeatMaker 3 to 90. Okay, I'm gonna leave the tempo on the MPC at 80, so you can see what happens when I do it this way. Okay, so here, all right, I'm just gonna press play. So as you can see, when you have BeatMaker 3 send the sync messages, BeatMaker 3 actually gives the tempo to the MPC, or I should say the MPC actually receives the tempo, whereas BeatMaker 3 will not receive the tempo for some reason or another. Not quite sure what it is, but yeah, that's pretty much the situation. If you know why that might be, then I invite you to, leave it in the comments below, because they both do the same thing. These are not two things that I would like to use at the same time. But if that's something that you want to do, I invite you to explore it. If you figure it out, definitely leave it in the comments below, and so we can share the information with other people. All right, so now that you've got you have your MPC set up, you have your synth set up, you may be thinking, well, dang, like I have this MPC one, and I have this iOS device that I want to use, but I don't want to have to bring like a whole extra mixer with me or something like that. Like, say if you might want to do this like with your MPC and your phone, because there's a lot of dope synths on the phone. Now you're probably thinking like, man, like I surely would love to do this, but like, man, do I have to bring like a little external mixer with me or something like that in order to mix the sound from the MPC and the synthesizer? And my answer to you is absolutely not. Okay, something that I use all the time is this one wire that I've had for years. And I can prove that I had it for years because it's from Radio Shack, and there ain't no Radio Shacks around no more. But basically what this wire is, it is an 1/8 inch to RCA adapter, and I actually have some RCA to 1/4 inch adapters right here. And so what I'll do is I'll plug these into the the audio input on the MPC, and then what I'll do is I'll go to the sampler page and I will select the sample, let's say input 1 and 2. Right now it's still connected to the mixer, but if it's alone, if it's a standalone mode without the mixer, your inputs are pretty much just 1 and 2. So what I would do is I would select input 1 and 2, okay? And then what you want to do here is, under the inserts, you see it says off. This is the monitoring button, which basically means is that any sound that comes in will go through. So if you turn this on, what that means is whatever sounds are coming in, you will hear them. If you're playing a sequence, if you're not playing a sequence, as long as the MPC is on, you will hear those sounds going through, which eliminates your need for an external mixer. So that's pretty much how you set it up. So what you would have is you'd have your iOS device plugged in via the headphone output, and then you have these connected to it. Now, if you have one of the newer iOS devices that doesn't have a headphone port, well, see, I have an iPhone 7. I'm not trying to get the newest iPhones. They cost too much. So I just use this. Also have an old iPhone 6, which has a headphone port, and my iPad Pro has a headphone port. So I only use this particular thing for my iPhone 7. But yeah, so you just connect those and you make the connection happen, and boom, you're in business.